The Mask That Married Him, Unveiling the Narcissistic Wife. It always begins with an undeniable, intoxicating beauty. She was the sunlight in the dark room of his life, a woman who didn't just look at him, she saw him, or so he believed. Her eyes sparkled with genuine, affirming intensity when he spoke, her laughter was a melodic rap of pure acceptance, and she absorbed his every story as if he were the most fascinating man alive. He was convinced he had found his soulmate, the rare individual capable of finally understanding the core of his heart. This wasn't just love, it felt like a cosmic recognition. What he didn't grasp in those dazzling early days was that he was falling for a magnificent, living mirror, not a person. Every smile was perfectly calibrated to reflect his deepest desire. Every tear, every passionate, "I love you," was a calculated performance, rehearsed for maximum, devastating effect. Her charm was initially perceived as magic, later, it would feel like a cold, inescapable hypnosis. Because behind that warmth, that perfect facade, resided a mind obsessed with control, not connection. She possessed a heart that craved constant, fervent admiration, narcissistic supply, not genuine intimacy. And her spirit was governed by a profound, toxic fear of accountability that dwarfed her fear of loneliness. This is the crushing reality of marriage to a narcissistic wife: you don't merely lose your peace, your tranquility, or your joy, you lose your very self. This is not a story of common arguments or everyday conflict. It is the narrative of a slow, deliberate theft of identity, a marriage that does not shatter in one dramatic moment but erodes the soul over a long, suffocating period. Let us step inside this emotional labyrinth and uncover the 10 core ways a narcissistic wife systematically treats, diminishes, and controls her husband. 1. She makes him doubt his own reality, the gaslight effect. The process starts subtly, with tiny, almost imperceptible verbal sleights of hand. He will state, "You explicitly told me to cancel the reservation." She will respond with an icy calm, eyes wide with feigned confusion, "I never said that. You must be mistaken." He distinctly remembers the conversation, the time, the place, yet she insists, with such unwavering certainty, that he begins to question the fidelity of his own memory. The seeds of self-doubt are planted: maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I am too sensitive. She reinforces this by calling him dramatic, unstable, or too emotional. Gaslighting is not a loud, dramatic explosion, it is the slow, deliberate erosion of sanity. She denies conversations that clearly took place, twists his words into grotesque parodies of their original intent, and deliberately cultivates confusion because confusion is her ultimate tool of control. While in public she is charming, articulate, and perfectly collected, at home, she plants a continuous barrage of emotional distortions, compelling him to rely on her distorted perception of reality instead of his own clear experience. Soon, he begins second-guessing everything: his feelings, his instincts, even his core sanity. And this is precisely where she wants him. When a man no longer trusts his own thoughts, he is utterly pliable and controllable. Psychologically, this is the narcissist's favorite game, turning solid truth into pliable clay and reshaping it to maintain her flawless self-image. Every disagreement becomes a trap, every confrontation a dizzying illusion. He starts offering apologies for things he never did, just to restore a fleeting moment of peace. 2. She uses affection as a weapon, not a gift. In the love-bombing phase, her affection felt boundless, a warm, safe harbor of attention, physical intimacy, and warmth. He felt uniquely and permanently chosen. But a fundamental shift occurs, not suddenly, but with a cruel, gradual subtlety. She begins a practice of intermittent reinforcement, withdrawing affection without warning or explanation. A frigid cold shoulder in bed. A dry, perfunctory "good-night." And when he inevitably asks what is wrong, the answer is always the same, emotionless word: nothing. This "nothing" becomes a form of psychological torture. Affection instantly becomes a tradable currency. She dispenses it when he is compliant and obedient, and she ruthlessly withholds it the moment he questions her or asserts his own needs. It was never about genuine love, it was always about leverage. She discovers that his desire for connection is her most potent power source. When she smiles, he feels relief; when she turns distant, he panics and rushes to fix it. This is the emotional leash of the narcissistic wife, forcing him to constantly chase a warmth she can switch off at a moment's notice. He becomes the apologetic pleaser, buying flowers, offering concessions, doing anything to earn her love. And each time, she grants him just enough warmth to keep him hooked, a bare minimum, but never enough to allow him to feel secure or safe. It's the cruel psychology of addiction. The high is so intoxicating he endures the lows, hoping they'll eventually end. Her affection is not love, it is control dressed in the costume of tenderness. 3. She publicly praises him, privately destroys him. To the outside world, the narcissistic wife is the paragon of marital devotion. She posts enviable pictures on social media, speaks glowingly of him at parties. "He works so hard, I'm the luckiest woman alive." Her warmth and grace are widely admired. But the instant the door closes, the mask is peeled away. The gentle tone turns instantly sharp, condescending, and cruel. She mocks his professional aspirations, ridicules his body, criticizes his parenting, and compares him unfavorably to friends or even strangers. At home, he is consistently made to feel small and inadequate. In public, however, the performance continues without fail, because image is everything to a narcissist. She doesn't want a partner, she wants a perfectly polished prop who lends credibility to her fabricated, perfect life story. She will actively charm his friends, family, and colleagues, securing a network of allies. When he finally reaches a breaking point and attempts to reveal the truth, no one believes him. They only see the charming, graceful wife, not the destructive manipulator behind the curtain. He learns to suffer in silence, isolated not physically, but socially. She becomes the ultimate paradox, his private emotional destroyer and his public, smiling defense attorney. 4. She plays the victim to gain power, emotional inversion. The moment he tries to hold her accountable or confront her hurtful behavior, the script immediately flips. Tears arrive instantly. Her head shakes with manufactured disbelief. "How could you say that to me after everything I sacrifice for this family?" Suddenly, he is no longer the hurt party, he is the villain. She becomes the fragile, misunderstood saint, and he, due to his inherent empathy, finds himself awkwardly comforting her for the pain he caused by holding her accountable. This is emotional inversion, the sophisticated art of turning responsibility into sympathy. Every attempt he makes to point out a wrongdoing, she finds a flawless counter-move to make him feel intensely guilty for even noticing. If he says she's controlling, she accuses, "You're the one who's always angry." If he catches her in a lie, she cries, "You never trust me." If he says she's emotionally cold, she retorts, "You don't appreciate all the effort I put in." The narcissistic wife survives and thrives through victimhood because it secures her two core needs, undivided attention and absolute control. By always positioning herself as the one wronged, she avoids all accountability while simultaneously gaining maximum emotional leverage. He keeps forgiving her, but every act of forgiveness costs him a vital piece of his self-respect. 5. She controls through guilt and obligation. In a healthy relationship, freedom is the foundation; with her, guilt is the invisible, unbreakable chain. He cannot go out for a night with his friends without her subtle but potent reproach, "I guess I'm not good company anymore." He cannot spend money on a personal hobby without the shadow of her deep disappointment, "You're always thinking about yourself instead of what our family truly needs." Every move toward independence transforms into a deep moral dilemma. She rarely needs to shout or threaten; a single, pointed sigh, a look of profound disappointment, or a brief, stinging comment is enough to make him feel fundamentally wrong. This guilt becomes a permanent, subconscious regulator of his behavior. He is slowly but surely rewired to submit, to defer, and to relentlessly prioritize her comfort and feelings over his own. The profound irony is that the more he sacrifices, the more powerful she becomes, not because she needs him, but because she thrives on his submission. 6. She competes instead of cooperates. A functional marriage is a partnership of two. With her, everything is a contest. If he achieves a professional success, she finds a subtle way to belittle it. Oh, I thought everyone in that field did that. What's so special? If he tries to assert a major decision for the home, she undermines him quietly. Are you really sure that's the best plan? Perhaps you should just let me handle it. Even emotional intimacy becomes a bizarre, invisible competition to see who wins an argument or who owns the narrative of their love story. This deep-seated rivalry serves to two cruel functions: to inflate her own fragile ego and to keep him perpetually uncertain, insecure, and striving. She does not want a husband who stands beside her as an equal, she demands a man who kneels emotionally, constantly seeking her elusive approval. 7. She systematically erodes his masculinity. This erosion is not marked by dramatic blow-ups, but by quiet, almost intimate acts of psychological sabotage. She targets his inherent confidence with tiny, persistent barbs. I thought you were strong enough to handle that, but I guess I was wrong, or I don't know why you even attempted that project. It's fine, I'll do it right myself. His self-worth dwindles under a slow, steady drip of ridicule and toxic comparison. His career ambition, his personal fitness, his passions, anything that contributes to his separate identity, becomes a fair target for her criticism. By the time he recognizes the pattern, a significant portion of his self-esteem is gone. He is no longer the confident man he once was, he is merely the man she reluctantly permits him to be. The narcissistic wife thrives on seeing him diminished, as his emotional submission offers the most potent validation of her own perceived superiority. 8. She rewrites every argument to protect her ego. Regardless of the facts, the narcissistic wife must always win the argument. Even when objectively proven wrong, she crafts an elaborate narrative where she emerges completely blameless. He argues, she retorts. He presents crystal-clear evidence, she twists it into an unrecognizable shape. She distorts the facts so convincingly that he begins to doubt his own memory of the events. Her goal is not truth or resolution, but domination. An apology is forbidden because acknowledging fault is a wound too deep for her fragile ego to tolerate. Instead, she spins every confrontation into a tale where he is the primary villain, or at best, equally responsible for her misdeeds. This leaves him perpetually exhausted. He stops fighting because he knows it is a battle he is psychologically engineered to lose. 9. She uses children or family as weapons, triangulation. When children are present, they are instantly instrumentalized as pawns in her game. She frames him as the inadequate, distant parent. If you truly cared about their future, you'd spend less time on your interests, or, they listen to me because I understand them, unlike you. She may subtly triangulate, pitting the children against him by selectively sharing conversations or portraying him as unnecessarily angry. Furthermore, his own parents and relatives become collateral damage. She spreads a convincing narrative to her family, that he is controlling, lazy, or emotionally abusive, thereby creating a powerful army of allies without his knowledge. He becomes trapped, not just by her, but by the elaborate, toxic narrative she has built around him in the eyes of the world. 10. She feeds on his emotional energy, narcissistic supply. Above all, the narcissistic wife thrives on her husband's intense emotional turmoil. Every display of his genuine feeling, joy, anger, sadness, fear, is potential narcissistic supply. She is an expert at provoking, teasing, and manipulating a strong reaction, because every tear, every frustrated outburst, and every desperate plea becomes a form of vital sustenance for her ego. When he attempts to pull away or emotionally distance himself, she immediately ramps up the manipulation, extreme sulking, overwhelming guilt trips, a sudden return to seductive charm, or even veiled threats. The entire cycle becomes tragically addictive for him. He chases a fleeting moment of peace or the return of the bolder, only to be yanked back into chaos. A narcissistic wife does not love, she consumes. To emotionally survive, he must eventually cut the cord and embark on the ultimate act of self-reclamation. Reclaiming yourself from the labyrinth. Living with a narcissistic wife is not a story of personal failure or weakness, it is a story of recognition and profound survival. The journey back to selfhood begins with a clear, unflinching awareness, seeing her patterns without the haze of denial. The next step is emotional detachment, shutting off the unconscious feeding tube that has supplied her ego for years. The final, critical phase is rebuilding, reclaiming your identity, asserting your boundaries, and restoring your inner peace. The path to freedom. Focus on what is truly within your control, your boundaries, your actions, and your personal thoughts. Do not waste energy trying to change her, it is futile. Stop seeking her validation. The moment you stop needing her approval, you take away her most powerful weapon. Her validation is a trap, not a reward. Detach without anger or hate. Anger and emotional turmoil are the fuel she needs for her supply. Seek indifference, which is the emotional opposite of love and hate. Invest relentlessly in your growth. Focus on your physical health, mental clarity, and emotional strength. Rebuild the man she sought to destroy. A narcissistic wife may possess charm, wit, and beauty, but these qualities can never outweigh the damage caused by control, deception, and the systematic theft of your identity. To reclaim yourself is to step into an undeniable state of clarity, freedom, and self-respect. It is to remember the man you were before the manipulation took root, and to rise again, unshaken, unbroken, and unbound. Because no marriage, and no woman, is worth the loss of your true self.